As a reporter, a man trained in a journalism school that is well regarded across the nation, I can tell you that I've observed a lot of things that make no sense to me under any international human rights declaration or any federal law that protects our nation. When I make these recordings, I literally talk in a way that makes sense to most people, but most people then forget what they've heard. Most people, especially young people, do not mind their mouths. There was young men mocking a homeless man who was simply seated underneath a traffic light waiting for his intended friends to arrive. They made fun of his cane, which was actually a staff. With anyone with any education would have recognized that. And openly they thought that they would get out of the car and call him inappropriate names like a child of 13. These are the young people that are driving inebriated in our streets. These are the young people that are breaking glass, making it difficult for us to walk on campus in bare feet. And the truth is that the foreign nationals who come here internationally are supposed to regard our laws. I know quite a great deal about that because I had friends of influence and not affluence, and friends of humbleness who came to the American schools to study with the help of my entire family, which became only myself and my mother and father. My father's wealth was used to secure her life while I worked hard to pay for her schooling. I did not have to prove that to anyone because I proved it to the internationalized government that allowed my rights to be handled. When a local law officer doesn't understand the law, he puts himself at international tribunal risk. What he does is he steals documents, he steals records, he steals cards of a foreign friend of mine that I was supposed to safeguard in my pockets. He does the pilfering while a man is sleeping. Now, I've revealed something about my life, but I'm also telling you about the problems we have in America. That young people are not taught our national anthems anymore is probably true. That foreign nationals are coming here to play and create mischief is really what they do. As a journalist, I watched 4 to 6 Arab internationals literally sitting outside of where a man was humbly sleeping out of the sprinklings of the rain. They were literally getting into his property. They were starting to play with one of the advertising signs he had written for the launch and fledgling of a business that he was marketing. You see, business advertising materials is protected under American law. These materials are things that a man has rights to have without some Arab child, a female girl, putting her hands on them, taking them off the posts, and thinking she's going to walk away with them and put them in her dorm room as if she's got a victory or a trophy at most. We also have law enforcement officers who work in the Midwest who will remove property from a person's vest, remove property from a person's bags, and take them as if they are a person of Nottingham. Those of us who love Robin Hood know who Sheriff was in those days, but the truth is that information has not really changed. There are people who work in security on campuses who I guess are fledgling officers or possibly fledgling military who do not regard the law at all. We have a problem in the land of people like this who do not regard our international treaties. We have students coming in from foreign cities with incredible affluence, absolutely no influence, who try to take their power by playing games on people's technologies. There is a saying in a foreign country that is sort of odd but sort of makes sense that says, "You do not know the Arab ahead of you, and you don't know the Arab behind you, so take care." There are other treaties, there are other proverbs, there are other sayings that says, "Go ahead, have your fun, run away, and lie about it." You see, we have people that don't have the same morality coming into our American society. There is a clause in the U.S. Constitution that says, I believe, that anyone coming into our country has to have either a regard for God or has to be a Christian in some sort of formality. I don't know that the international people who allow people across the border are doing the job that they should be. Last night I could have sworn that I saw my own son, an international citizen, actually in a car with others like him. I did a double take because I know the lines of my child quite well. I know the face of a mature man in his 30s. But I also realize that there are plenty of lookalikes, plenty of doppelgangers, plenty of people who like to pretend they are others in taking information that they've stolen inappropriately and immorally and making signs as if they represent them in society or in legality. There is a problem of young people with their mouths today. They might be of age to drink today, but they don't have the maturity to eat properly when they drink. I have watched several people inebriated drive down the street. I have also seen the dangers of texting while driving in young people on this college campus driving powerful cars. Every time one of the hot rods blasts down the street, they are going far above the speed limit on this green street. And I sit there and wonder, why would a police officer whose number plate is U7154 drive 7 or 8 times by a person simply seated, enjoying the night, enjoying watching the wildlife, if you will, enjoying watching the young black man with the scooter take girls in a basket or a wagon through the sidewalks, and simply keep flying by him? Maybe he doesn't know how to perform his job, but what he should really do is park his vehicle, sit down in plain clothes, and watch the illness of the college students fly by. The other night, the same thing was happening to a homeless man who was simply walking back from eating his supper. What he saw was a young woman seated on the edge of a building with a beverage, and he wondered, where are the police officers? Now, as a reporter observing what's going on, I see a policeman driving by a homeless man who just woke up. That happens to that homeless man almost every single day. Now, is it that the policeman is simply on his duty or on his path, and I forget what they call, I think it's a route that he is supposed to participate in patrol? Or is it a young man or a young woman in the force who has used technology illegally and immorally to maliciously stalk and mob a person's life? We know that there has been a young homeless man who's still relatively young but still seasoned in his ways, who is being harassed all the time by people from the shelter. They are taking turns to walk by him with 4 or 5 of them from that days when he stayed there. They are literally taunting him with things he can't hear because his hearing is not clear, and they are mumblers from their lifestyles. Whether they're mumbling from their alcohol consumption, whether they're mumbling from their drug addictions, or whether they're mumbling because their mothers never taught them enunciation is unclear. I don't want you to be offended by what I'm recording here, because I am merely a commentarist. And I don't know that that's still the word today, but they used to be called a columnist, and when we had newspaper days. A columnist renders an opinion, but here's what a columnist always does that I don't see happening in the local journalism of the newspaper of this college. A columnist will always interview an expert on the topics that they're planning to give an opinion about before they render their own opinion. I have seen articles in this newspaper that don't even cite sources correctly, and no one in the editorial staff catches it because they're just looking it over briefly, barely reading it and checking it off like, okay, that's fine, let's put it in, we have to make deadline. In life, we have moments of time to speak the truth, and when law enforcement officers enable children of foreign lands to steal, to pilfer, and they're sitting there, right there, a block away, watching this happen, they are foolish. You see, it's the immature and the undereducated and the poorly trained officer that costs the city millions of dollars. The suit without a suit is commonly talked about by federal prosecutors. And a federal prosecutor that can do a suit without a suit means that she or he sues a city behind the scenes without the officers ever really getting it until they actually learn that they've lost their pensions today, or they've lost their career mobility from their behaviors today. If an officer doesn't know how to keep the peace with intelligence and articulation of a verbosity that makes sense to a college student, then they have not studied enough society or networking capability. We have seen some going in and having jive talk and honky talk with people, and only people of my age would probably know what that means from television days. But what I'm talking about is we don't have Fat Albert in the community anymore. trying to make kids do right things. What we have are young men who literally play nice with the whites and then turn around behind them and fuck all over them with their inappropriate comments with the blacks. Now, as we get to the end of my audio cast, I am a commentator who actually reports what he observes and what he experiences on his life journey. And when a man wakes and finds more of his pagan beard cut by someone with a pair of shears, someone with a pair of scissors, or someone with a pocket knife, because he is so tired from the day's rest that he doesn't feel what they're doing at best, because they're trying to do it and sneak it in like a ninja and lie to themselves about what they're allowed to do in their security vests. The liar of the land has stolen intellectual property, and here's something else we've got to take care about. That if the children of foreign lands and if the local children of college age do not know what the WITSAC program is, they really need to look it up. Because there are people in similar type programs of WITSAC, which literally is a professional program that protects people and witnesses of people who see law enforcement abuses and immorality abuses, that they don't recognize that a man has the right to shift his name, to take on a nickname, to protect his personal space, his professional life, and his body from the harm and the shame of immoral people.